You're listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Ask Away series on the Everyday Judaism Podcast. To have your questions answered on future episodes, please email askaway@torchweb.org. Now, ask away.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Ask Away segment of our Everyday Judaism Podcast, the highlight of our week when everyone can just open up to any questions. And I'll do my best. If I know the answer, I'll say I'll still give an answer. If I don't know an answer, I'll have to get back to you and I'll say I don't know. But for today's 16th episode of the Ask Away series, we begin with Eliana. Please ask your question.
My question is, if a woman is in a position where she is unable to go to the shul to hear the shofar blow, is she able to blow the shofar for herself?
That's an excellent question. Excellent question. Is a woman obligated to hear the shofar? And if she is obligated to the shofar, can she blow it for herself? So the answer is a woman should hear the shofar. She is obligated to hear the shofar. And if she has no alternative, she can blow it for herself. There's no reason she can't. Okay? If a woman is trained and she knows how to do it, definitely. A woman can blow a shofar for other people who are obligated in the mitzvah. Okay? But if I remember when I was in yeshiva in Toronto for a Rosh Hashanah, someone came over to me and said, there's an old age home about 6 miles away or something. I remember it was just like an endless walk. And there's nobody to blow the shofar for all the residents in the old age home. Would you walk there and blow the shofar? I said, of course. There's nothing better that I'd love to do on Rosh Hashanah. I'm serious. I'm being sincere. I really thought that literally the best thing you can possibly do on Rosh Hashanah is be selfless. Go walk there, blow the shofar for the people. And I did. And it was absolutely incredible. I would go from room to room, and people were so excited that on Rosh Hashanah, they're not going to miss hearing blowing the shofar. It's very, very important. Now, if a person can get to synagogue, part of Rosh Hashanah is installing God as king of the universe. How do you do that? You don't do that as a private person in your room. You do that with as many people as possible. So it's best if a person can figure out a way to get to synagogue. If a person cannot, it's more important that one observe the holiday than get to synagogue. It's definitely more important for a person to observe the holiday than to get to synagogue. Meaning, if a person can avoid driving, that's best. If a person can avoid any type of desecration of the Chag, of the holiday, which is like the laws of Shabbat in most regards, they should. There's no mitzvah in the Torah to go to synagogue. There's no mitzvah in the Torah to go to synagogue. There is a mitzvah to observe the Shabbos. There is a mitzvah in the Torah to observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So definitely the most important part is to ensure that one is in observance of the holiday. Then a person needs to hear the shofar, so we do whatever we can to blow the shofar. And even if it's not the greatest blowing of the shofar, still a person fulfills the mitzvah. And do whatever you can. I will share with you a story that I heard from Reb Nata Greenblatt. Reb Nata Greenblatt was he was a rabbi in Memphis, Tennessee, and he was a very prominent student of Reb Moshe Feinstein, and he was known as the get rabbi, and the one who would give the get. A get is a divorce document that any man and woman who are married that wanted to get divorced, you have to give a special document of divorce to the woman. And he was a very, very, very knowledgeable in this area. Had very special training from Reb Moshe Feinstein on the laws of divorce. And they're very particular. It's not just like anybody can do it. The halacha says that you have to really, really know your stuff extremely well. And he would go around the world. And he'd come to Houston. I've met him many times. He stayed at my house several times. We had the great privilege of hosting him. And, he'd arrive late at night. This reminds me of another story. But he arrives late at night. And the next morning, right after Shachris, right after morning services, he'd have a couple come, and he would draw up the get, and he would do the whole procedure. You need to have witnesses, kosher witnesses, and it would, he would do sometimes 3 or 4 in a day. He would line them up like on a Tuesday. He would do, if he could do them all in one day, otherwise he'll do it the next day as well. And then he would fly to the next city, and he would do, whoever needed it there. Just to tell you the story. So one time he flew to Houston. I was doing our class here at the Torch Center, and immediately after class, I got into my car, I drove as quickly as I can to Hobby Airport, and he's already standing there he says, "Don't pick me up from the arrivals, pick me up from the departures, because it's at night, it's going to be empty." And he's there standing, waiting. I felt so bad. Here's a prominent rabbi. He's waiting for me. So, I run out of the car, and I'm like, "So sorry." See, I take his bag, and he bring him into the car, and I open the door for him. Right when I get into the driver's seat, I start driving him to the house. So I started apologizing. I said, "I'm really sorry. I just finished my class, and I came here as quickly as I could right after class. And I'm like, I'm sorry that his flight arrived early, of course, but either way, I said, I'm sorry. So he says to me, you're a grandchild of Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe. You can accept a little bit of reprimand, right? So I said, yeah, you can shell it out. He says, nobody cares that you gave a class. You were late. Right? He was such a delightful human being. It was amazing. He was very honest, very straight. And no, because I was giving an excuse to why I was late. Just say I'm late. I'm sorry. Don't start giving the whole excuse that you were giving class and you finished the class. And it's like nobody cares that you gave a class. You were late and finished, It was very special. Either way. So what I was trying to say is like this. See, he was once in Moscow. And the way it worked in communist Russia was that he was there to do a get. Someone came over to him to ask him a halachic question. And they said that because their mother-in-law died, so now they had less people in the family, so they randomly would move them. The square footage would change depending on how many people were in the family. Because the mother-in-law died or the grandmother died, they had less people and they moved them outside of the city to a different apartment, that was smaller. And now he was in walking distance of the synagogue. And he said, I have to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. He said, there's nothing around me. Nothing, absolutely nothing. What am I going to do? I need to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. So he said, it's a difficult question. What do I do? So he said, you can go on the train. You could take the train to Moscow, which would have a stop not far from the synagogue, and you can go to the synagogue and you can hear the shofar being blown. And he wasn't sure whether or not he gave the right psak, whether he gave the right ruling. So when he came back to America, he asked Reb Moshe Feinstein, his Rebbe, whether or not he gave him the right ruling. And he started crying. Not Reb Moshe. When he was telling me this story, Reb Nata, he started crying. And he said, and my rabbi said that I gave the right ruling. I gave the right ruling. Right? Now, there's a reason why a train is not like a car. Because it's taking other people and you're just going on the train, right? It's different than someone driving a car. It could be very different if you have an Uber driver who opens the door and closes the door. That could be more lenient. Perhaps I'm not giving this ruling. Okay, for those online, please don't stone me to death. Perhaps there could be a more lenient ruling in such a situation, but it really is. These are really, really complicated questions. I had last week a very difficult question. Last week on Shabbos, the same ruling would apply on Yom Tov. I had, so as you know, I'm a first responder, and people come to me, people knock on my door almost every single Shabbos with a different medical thing, like I'm some doctor, I'm some surgeon or something. I can figure out some miraculous. So people come, just like, I'm like, why didn't you call Hatzalah? Hatzalah is free volunteer ambulance service. Like, why didn't you call? Like, I didn't want to call on Shabbos. I didn't know if this was life-threatening. I didn't know if this would fall into the category. I'm like, if you're concerned enough to walk here, you can call. Okay, you can call. You're concerned. You're worried. Call, and we'll figure it out. Okay. Actually, there was one child. A family brought a baby to the house. The baby almost died. And when the father walked in with the stroller with the baby, I said to him, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I just wanted you to check him out." I said, "This kid needs a hospital now." And the kid, when we arrived in the hospital, because we have to call it in, they had the entire medical team there. They had all the nurses on a bed ready for this baby because this baby is in critical condition. Critical condition. They said it's a miracle if he makes it out. The main doctor in the emergency room told us, "I've been managing this floor, Texas Children's Hospital, for over 25 years. I've never seen such a sick baby." Now, again, parents, they don't know. They're concerned. I don't know. He's blue lips. What does that mean? I don't know. It's like maybe, and it's an infant. But you're concerned. Call. But it's Shabbos. But the Torah says that life comes before Shabbos. Life, saving a life. Okay, so last week, someone comes over to our house and says that their spouse is suffering from 10 out of 10 pain from a tooth. 10 out of 10, not 3 out of 10, not 6 out of 10, 10 out of 10 pain. They are like impossible pain for 3 hours already, or 4 hours. I don't know how many hours. Like insane. So someone's 10 out of 10 pain, that could be a life-threatening situation too, right? So, and I was concerned that if it's a tooth infection, you can get sepsis. That's a life-threatening condition as well. I immediately said, "Hold on a second." I made a phone call. We got them into an endodontist who did an emergency root canal because they did have an infection. And the guy who's, as observant as anyone you've ever met, and they got into an Uber and went to the emergency clinic where they were taken care of on Shabbos. Now you wonder, it's an odd feeling, like I'm walking, like I've never walked into a store on Shabbos. I've never, gone into a doctor's office on Shabbos, but sometimes you have to if it's a life-threatening situation. So what I'm saying is that there are, the number one priority is the observance of the holiday. The number two priority is fulfilling the mitzvahs that are commanded in a way that is not violating the Shabbos. Okay? I don't know how I got into it. The simple answer to your question is that you can blow for yourself. You can blow the shofar for yourself. That's the answer. All right. So with that, my dear friends, next question. Let's move it along.
My wife asked me, I see some hectors say kosher and some say Glatt Kosher. What's the difference? I told her we need to ask the rabbi. He explained it to me a long time ago, but the significance is something that has to do with how they inspect the product. And you told me, well, that's a good question for next Sunday.
That's right. I remember the question that you asked, and I'm very grateful that you're sharing it with our listeners and our online audience so that we can elaborate on this. So let's get into the laws of kosher and how they... So the laws of kosher are very simple if you know what they are. If you don't know what they are, they seem very, very confusing. Very confusing. But here's the bottom line. Almost every product that you find today, you can find a kosher parallel to it. Almost any product. You can find a kosher. There are kosher symbols, many, many different types. And not to get confused of why we have, I'll just explain very quickly. Anything that grows from the ground is kosher. Whether it's any type of fruit, any type of vegetable, they're all kosher. What's not kosher? You cannot eat any insects, any bugs. So as long as they're checked for bugs, you can eat them. So you can go to your favorite supermarket, your favorite retailer, and buy any fruits, any vegetables. They're all kosher. Just inspect to ensure that they're not infested with bugs, which is why strawberries, delicious. But you have to be very careful. You have to know how to rinse them and wash them and check them so that there aren't little worms. And if you look in a microscope, if you've seen, you can see these videos online, they're not visible to the eye. You look under a microscope and you'll see worms, literally worms walking around some of those strawberries. You got to be careful. There's a very specific process in how to remove all those worms so that you can enjoy your delicious strawberry. And the same is with every single lettuce. Lettuce, if you even look at any, I'm not going to mention stores, but if you look at any of those packages that have, the heads of lettuce, you look at the package, just through the plastic, you'll be able to see bugs. Almost 100% of the time. So that is a process. You can either buy pre-checked, which means someone sat there, looked with a light to ensure that there's no bugs, no worms in the lettuce leaves. Or you can clean it yourself. There's a very specific process. You can look online. There's many classes about how to check for bugs in these with all of these vegetables and fruits. By the way, you can have in an apple. You can have a worm, right? It's not something which is uncommon, right? You can't eat the worm. You can eat the apple. Get the worm out. Enjoy your apple. Okay. So all fruits and vegetables are kosher except for the insects that may be in them that need to be removed, and then you can eat it. By the way, if there was an insect, it doesn't make it not kosher, the fruit or vegetable. Just remove the insect and enjoy the vegetable, okay? Or the fruit. Okay, that's point number one. Then there's another type of food, okay? We said anything grows from the ground, kosher, right? That means all types of flowers. Now, again, you want to know that the flour is actual flour. So that means that generally anything that you bake can be kosher. However, today, in many of the bakeries, they can mix in things that are not kosher, non-kosher, additives, preservatives, things like that would render the cookie, the cake, the pastry unkosher, which is why we make sure that anything that we do buy and that was baked, also you have to know that it was baked in an oven that was kosher. Now, meat, anything that stands on the ground, like birds or things like that, we don't eat any birds of prey. There are certain qualifications for an animal to be kosher. Number one, it has to have split hooves and chew its cud. So that's a cow, that's a deer, etc., a sheep, a lamb, a goat, any of those. Okay. They have to have split hoofs and chew their cud. They also need to be slaughtered properly. Okay, so a chicken, a turkey, any of these animals, they need to be slaughtered properly. Fish, any fish that has fins and scales is kosher. Fins and scales, kosher. If it has only one of them, not kosher. It needs to have fins and scales. Okay. And anything else that swims in the water is not kosher. So catfish, not kosher. Shellfish, not kosher. Only fins and scales. Fins and scales. Okay, that's it. It's pretty simple, right? We're done. Now we know everything that's kosher, everything that's not kosher. Now, what is glatt kosher? Oh, so now let's talk about the kashrus agencies. So now I'm a businessman, right? I don't have time to go to the plant to see that it's kosher, so we hire a rabbi to go do it, right? Houston, we have the Houston Kashrut Association, and they pay rabbis to go to factories in the Houston and the greater Houston area, and they ensure that everything that comes out of that factory is kosher, so that we can eat them. We can eat the food that comes out of there. The same thing is with restaurants. You want to eat in a restaurant. How do you know that the restaurant is serving you actual kosher food? They have a rabbi who's supervising to ensure. He's not blessing the food. He's ensuring that the food that you're being served with is kosher. That's their job. Their job is to ensure that through the back door they didn't bring in Purdue chicken or Tyson meats. They have to ensure that they actually only have kosher food being delivered, and the process in which they're cooking it is actually kosher, and there's nothing that's being mixed in. That every ingredient that comes into a restaurant through the back door is checked off by the mashgiach, by the supervisor. He's ensuring that the food that gets to your plate is kosher. So now you have one in Houston, to ensure that the Houston community has kosher access. You have the same in San Antonio, the same in Austin, the same in Dallas. Each one has their own. Each one is going to be identified with a different symbol. Not because they're trying to confuse you, but because each one is their own entity. It's their own 501c3. It's their own organization. The same thing with New Orleans, has their own kashrus agency. And in Las Vegas, you have their own kashrus agency. And in Denver, Colorado, every Jewish community has. So it can get confusing. Now, there are some big ones, like OU, which is international. It's the Orthodox Union. And that is universal. It's accepted by almost every single Jewish community in the entire world. So if you look at that little wrapper right there, you will see an OU on it, someplace on that wrapper that identifies that a rabbi from the Orthodox Union was in that plant and ensured that your granola bar is kosher and that all the ingredients that were put in there, everything is kosher. And by the way, if you look, pass it here, I'll show you exactly where it is. You see it right there? Okay, now, if you ever see on these any of these, you buy a bottle of Coke, you'll see all of these numbers and you'll see dates. It's the day that it left the plant or the day it was produced in the plant. But all these other numbers, all these other codes, you ever wonder what they are? What they are is giving the exact lot number, the exact conveyor belt, the exact conveyor belt that it was produced on. Why is that important? I'll tell you why it's important. Because, well, maybe not for Coca-Cola, maybe not for drinks, but for other things it is. Imagine what else goes on that conveyor belt. I was once doing supervision for the CRC, which is also one of the big kashrus agencies, the Chicago Rabbinic Council. And they're very, very, very prominent, very well respected. And they asked me to do for a specific potato chip company that was nearby. So they asked me, I didn't want to do it for long because I have a full-time job here at Torch, right? But they asked me for a favor, as a new contract, till they found the rabbi for it. They want to, someone that they know locally who can do it. So I went down there to the plant, and we went through the whole process of exactly what I need to look for. I looked at every single drum. They come in massive vats of, chips, and then those chips are poured into the oil, and then it goes through a whole conveyor belt, and all of the flavorings are added, everything. So you have barbecue chips, the regular original chips, the pork-flavored chips, and the other flavored. They're all the same chips, but the flavoring is different. It's very important to know what went on that line first. There was one conveyor belt, which was just for the kosher stuff. I went in there for a random inspection one day, and I found that they did the kosher line on the non-kosher conveyor belt. I'm like, what happened? And I looked at all those, what's this? And they're like, oh, that machine was down, so we used the next one. You know what you have to do? You have to pull all of those that were marked kosher. You got to pull them all off the shelves because they're not kosher. They were put in the same exact oil that the pork rinds were put in. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the responsibility of the rabbi, and that was a random check because you don't suspect that they're going to do something silly like that. But what do they know? They're like, this conveyor belt was down, so we use the next one. They weren't doing it maliciously, but that's the responsibility of the rabbi to ensure that such things don't happen. So now you have OU, you have star K, you have Chaf K, you have OK. These are all internationally recognized labels. And they'll go, because a lot of the ingredients are coming from other countries, they have to go to those plants to ensure that before those ingredients get shipped to the United States, they're actually kosher. And they'll be sealed there by the rabbi who went there. And when they come here, they need to ensure that it's still sealed. Okay, just another simple example. When you order takeout from a kosher restaurant, one of the things you'll notice is that they'll tape it shut in a way that you can see if it was tampered with. Because who's the delivery person delivering it with Uber Eats? No idea. Right, what's if they decided, you know what, I'm going to try this food. I'm going to replace it with McNuggets. Right? How do you know that they're not tampering with it? Well, if you have that seal tamper-proof seal, now you know. And that's why it's done like that. It's done to ensure that you're getting the kosher food that you ordered. Okay? So now, Glatt Kosher. What is Glatt Kosher? So that now we know the ideas of kosher. Glatt Kosher is referring specifically to when an animal is slaughtered. After, it has to be a kosher animal, we said, split hooves, chew its cud. It has to be a bird that is not of prey. But you also have to ensure that it was slaughtered properly. And then you have to ensure, after it was slaughtered, that it wasn't a blemished animal, that it didn't have a puncture in its lungs, which is common, that it didn't have another cancerous type of illness, that is common. You have to ensure that it didn't have a broken leg, which is also sometimes common, which is why before they bring the animal to the area of slaughtering, they walk with it to see that it's not limping. They do things with the animal, regular, ordinary things, to ensure that the animal is actually, at least from the outside, externally, we're inspecting it and it's kosher. Now, once it's slaughtered, they have to check internally to see that that animal is kosher. And what they do is an examination. One of the examinations that they do is that they basically check that the cavity of the animal is smooth. That's glatt. The word glatt is Yiddish for smooth. They're checking that it's smooth, that there's not. And now, I was once at a slaughtering of an animal, of a kosher animal. This one happened to have not been kosher. And the shochet calls me over, and I don't like this gory stuff, but the shochet calls me over, the slaughterer calls me up, and he says, put your gloves on. I put gloves on, and he says, put your hands inside the animal. I put it in, and I couldn't get it all the way in. He says, you know what that is? That's a tumor. It was a tumor. There should be no connection there between the rib cage of the animal and the other organs of the animal. Okay, that's glatt. Glatt is when it's inspected that it is smooth and there's nothing there that's interfering. That means it's a healthy kosher animal. So when it's referring to meat products, you will find glatt. That's what it means. It means that it was checked. Now, can it be kosher and not glatt? Yes, it could be kosher. It's best to get when it's glatt to ensure that it was checked properly. It's only applicable when it's an animal. Correct.
Do they
All
open the lungs and stuff?
Yes, they blow the lungs like a balloon. They blow it up. They take it. They really do. And they will see if it inflates properly, then it was a healthy set of lungs. If it doesn't, and there was a puncture, you keep blowing all day. It's not going to inflate, right? That's the way it works. So you have. That's why they do it. But that's why also kosher meat will cost a little bit more, because there's much more process to ensure that you're getting quality food. Now, I just want to mention something. You're like, oh, it's the rabbi tax. I know the question's coming. So let me tell you, okay? Some doctor said that organic food is healthier. So they opened up a Whole Foods and they charged $26 for a box of cereal. Why? Because the doctor said it's healthier. God, creator of heaven and earth, tells us what a kosher animal is, tells us how it should be slaughtered, tells us how it should be checked to ensure that you have the best, the absolute best going into your body. Oh, it's the rabbi tax. Right? It's like when it's a doctor who says organic, which, by the way, the New York Times did an article. They did 150 studies and they found not one proven benefit to organic food. Not one proven benefit. But some doctor said it's better. Everyone's running to Whole Foods, and I have nothing against Whole Foods, right? Also Jewish owned, right? But nothing. Go and we have no problem spending $20 more for a box of cereal because it's organic versus kosher. Oh, that's the rabbi tax. It's a big mistake. Yes.
I have a follow-up question that
Please.
Came to my mind because of what you said with the product being sealed. In this town, in the hospitals, it is very difficult because of the ignorance of the staff to get kosher food. And I have spent quite a lot of time in some of the hospitals. And when I finally convinced and educated the head of the dietary process that you have in your freezer kosher meat, I know that because I've been here before. Then they finally found it, they cooked it, and they opened the seal and brought it to me. I looked at her, I said, you broke the seal. It's not kosher for me anymore. I don't know what these people that you have here from all over the world know about how to handle this food. Okay. Was I right or wrong?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So it's very, very interesting. You mentioned the first is feel better. We pray for you every day. Feel better. We want you no more in hospitals, only at the Torch Center all day, every day, learning Torah with us. You're really a great asset to our class, to our inspiration, to our learning, to our wisdom. So Hashem should bless you with only good health. When it comes to hospitals, it's very difficult. It really is difficult. And I'm going to say something which is like, when my wife was in the hospital, she was in the hospital for our 5th child. She was preterm labor. She went into labor at 28 weeks. She was in the hospital for 3-4 weeks till the baby, they said, we're pushing this baby out. So she was there for quite a while. And the chef heard that there's a Jewish family in this hospital. So the chef came to the room and he says, tell me what I need to do. Tell me what I need to do. It's the head chef of the hospital. And, he went, it's an amazing thing. He went to Belden's. You remember Belden's? Yes. Of blessed memory? All right. The great grocery that we had here that had a tremendous amount of kosher products. And he took pictures and he said, what can I get you from here that's kosher that you would eat, that you would enjoy? And my wife made a whole selection of things, and he bought frozen meals, and he brought them, and he had a whole schedule of exactly what he was going to, because he knew she was going to be there a little bit of a long term. It was almost 4 weeks that she was there. And of course, I brought food from home, and I brought things, but still, that was very special. You don't always get a chef like that. A head chef who's really concerned. And he knew exactly what type of ice cream she liked. He knew exactly, he asked her, he went through a whole menu, breakfast, what do you want to eat for breakfast? And he made sure that everything in the hospital was taken care of for her. One of the things that she said is that the seal cannot be broken. It means you're going to heat it up in a microwave. We don't know what else goes in that microwave. We don't know if it's kosher or not. If it's double sealed, it's not a problem. That's a trick you should always know. My son just called me. He was in Barcelona on a stopover with a few friends on his way back to Israel for yeshiva. And he's like, what can I cook? He's in some Airbnb, overnight. He's like, I'm like, just double wrap whatever you want to eat and put it in their oven. It's fine. But it's not a kosher oven. But if it's double wrapped, it's fine. That's why you want to ensure that the food seal is not broken. By the way, most airlines also have kosher food, and you can reserve it when you book your ticket, especially if you're flying internationally. And sometimes you'll have to remind them, please make sure not to break the seal. And they have, by the way, on all of the wrappings, if it's a good kosher caterer that prepared the food, do not break the double seal. They have stickers all over it. Do not, please, stewards and stewardesses, please do not break the seal. Okay, because otherwise it's not going to be kosher. Okay, it's not going to be kosher, and most knowledgeable people will not eat from it. So that is correct. But I want to say something. In our magnificent Houston community, there is something called Eshel House.
Yes, sir.
And the Eshel House is run by Shimon, by Laser and Rachel Lazaroff, and it's right over there on University Boulevard. And if you call them and you let them know that you'll be in the hospital, they will bring you kosher food, home-baked goods, and they are terrific, magnificent people. And I urge people to support them and urge people to reach out to them if you need any help, because they're really, really very special, and they help many, many, many visitors who come from out of town who need a place to stay. They welcome them into their Eshel House, and they feed them, and they take care of all of the patients in the hospitals.
That's been my remedy for the situation. I call Eshel House.
That's great.
They send over food, And
additionally, if someone's there for Shabbos, they'll bring them candles or whatever they need for lighting candles. And that's permitted by the hospital. Whatever is permitted by the hospital, they know. And the electric ones is fine. And they'll bring you challah, and they'll bring you the grape juice. And it really is very, very special. And that's the truth of how we're supposed to take care of one another. Just a few weeks ago, we had right over here sitting in this seat, we had the Satmar Bika Cholim. And the Satmar Bika Cholim, they have 18 hospitals that they facilitate all of these things for the Jewish patients. Many of them even have sleeping quarters that you can go and sleep. Your family member, you're visiting your family. I remember when my father had open heart surgery in Good Samaritan Hospital in Rockland County, and I came from Houston. My brother came from Israel. And what are we going to do for Shabbos? We'll sleep in the room, I guess, in my father's recovery room. And someone came in before Shabbos. He says, no, you're not sleeping here. Across the street, we own a house. And room number 2, or whatever room it was, is your room. There are 2 beds there. There's hot food. There's challah. There's cholent. There's kugel. There's all the food for Shabbos. And make yourselves at home. You also showed us that they had, with the hospital, created a manual door, so we don't need to go through the electric doors on Shabbat. They created just for Shabbos, for those who are observant of Shabbat, they can use a manual door to get out of the hospital, not one of those that are electric and automatic, to avoid that. But this is the way we are as a people. We take care of the needs of our people. It's very important. It's not only Jews, non-Jews benefit from Bikur Cholim as well. It's very, very important for us to always remember that. Okay. Thank you for your question. I hope I addressed it. Marilyn, please.
Last Friday, we addressed the importance of self-sufficiency. Give a man a fish, and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he'll eat for a lifetime. In the Jewish religion, what is the role of a Jewish woman to be self-sufficient? Do we teach a woman to cook, and man will eat for a lifetime? Be dependent? No, this is serious. This is really because, and I have a reason. Be dependent on a man to catch a fish or hunt? The reason for my question is the attitude in Gen X, age 45 to 60, Gen Z, shaped by the digital world, have been raised on different tools. They seem to have difficulty finding direction in their life.
An excellent question, and it could be a mine that will explode. And I got to be very careful with what I say. So let's start from the beginning, okay? When my wife and I, almost 24 years ago, got married, October 15th, 2001, we got married, and under the chuppah, I gave her a ketubah, a marriage document. And in that marriage document, it said that I will provide for her a livelihood. If I think back, I don't think she gave me a document in return. And I don't think ever in the history of the world any woman has given back a document to the man. This is my obligation to you. In the way Hashem created, the way God created man and woman, we're different. Physically different, emotionally different, and in every way different. Intellectually different. We are uniquely crafted in a way by the Almighty to fit a specific role. That doesn't mean that a woman is not capable, God forbid. It doesn't mean that a man is capable, right, all the time. It means that we all have a different job and a different role. And therefore, every person needs to... And by the way, I know women who are career women who earn significantly more than their husbands do. They're very, very talented, very skilled, very, very bright women. But still, the nurturing of the children comes from the mother. The child rearing comes from the mother. The father provides certain aspects. The mother provides certain aspects, right? But you can never trade that. You can never give it to the nanny will raise the kids. That's not going to be sufficient, right? She might teach them how to speak Spanish. She might teach them how to eat nicely by a table, but she's not necessarily going to raise them with proper emotions, with proper values, with ethics that the parents can fulfill. So the role of a man and a woman is very, very different. And throughout history, it was the man's job to go out in the field and provide for his family, not the woman's job. It's definitely not her responsibility to do it. If she wants to do it, go right ahead. If my wife tells me that she wants to go and earn a living, all right, and support the family, I'll be very happy. Okay, but I will definitely not say no. That's not for you. You're not allowed to. No, go ahead. But there's a very important thing, and the Talmud, by the way, talks about this. What's if a woman does earn money and she says, you know what, I want to keep my money for myself, and I don't need your favors. I don't need your money. I don't need your things. She could say that, and she doesn't have to share her income and her wealth with her husband. Okay, Eini nizonos ve'eini yosa. Right? I don't want don't give me your money, but you're not getting mine. She could do that. Now, that's not typically what we call a harmonious. I talk to young guys who are getting married, and I say the first thing you need to do is get rid of your bank accounts. Because she has her bank account, he has his bank account. No more. Now you have one bank account. You're becoming one. It's got to be one. You got to be one unit. If each one has their own little separate thing, then you're never locking it in. Right? Now, I know there are people who will say, well, we have a different way to do it, and she has her spending money, I have my spending money. There's many ways to work it out. But the idea in principle is that you have to be a unit and figure out every couple what's the best way for them to proceed forward in the most fruitful way. But I don't think that there's any. I think, yes, there is a responsibility on the man to provide for the family. That is the responsibility of the man, and it is not the woman's obligation to do so. It's not her obligation. Okay? Under the chuppah, there are three things that a man agrees to take care of. He agrees to take care of his wife financially, physically, and emotionally. Okay, those are the obligations. Any woman who's ever received a ketubah under the chuppah, those are the things that a man obligates himself to. He's going to take care of her physically, emotionally, financially. He's going to have a roof over her head. He's going to clothe her. He's going to adorn her with jewels, right? Before the holiday. I'm not kidding. You have an obligation before every holiday to buy your wife a special outfit or to buy her jewelry, to buy her something special. That's an obligation. The Torah is not chauvinist. The Torah is not putting down women. The Torah elevates women. In fact, women are the most respected and most revered in a Torah observant world. 100%. I say this without any doubt. All right? I hope I answered your question.
Well, we have to go on to the difficulty of the new generation.
Okay, so the new generation is a very difficult generation because they're very entitled, and they grew up with everything being served to them. And if their Starbucks isn't ready when they get to the thing, or their McDonald's or whatever it is that they're ordering, then they throw a fit and they throw it back at the person. And you've seen videos, I'm sure, and that's an entitled generation, which is really catastrophic because we all know, most of us here have some white hair, right? We've had some experience. My rabbi used to say, I used to hear this from him all the time. He says, white hair means information center, right? That's what it means. It means you have a lot of knowledge. And I'm happy I'm getting white a little. Finally.
Very distinguished.
Thank you. For those of you who are asking, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I said to him, he stroked my beard. So I was like, oh, so you like it? He's like, no, I don't like it. So I said, well, bring the hostages home and it might come off. I said, this is my October 7th beard. And when the hostages come home, then I didn't have a beard. You remember me clean shaven, right? Yes, so this is for our hostages. And if now everyone started liking it, so I'm not so sure what I do after, but hopefully the hostages are brought home today and they're not in captivity for even one more minute. Amen. But the problem with the entitlement generation is really, really problematic. Really, really problematic because everything is instantaneous. If their internet does, I've seen videos of people slamming their phones because the internet wasn't fast enough. Oh my goodness. Right? You remember the time we had to go to a library to research papers, to learn about things? Today, everything's in milliseconds, and it's not fast enough. So they slam their phone because they're so upset that it's not going fast enough. What's wrong with people? Patience is a very, very important virtue, a very, very important quality that we should all continue to invest in for ourselves and to teach it to the next generation. Take a minute, just relax, right? And to be responsible is also something that's not really taught enough. If someone has two healthy parents, if a child grows up with two healthy parents, hopefully that's something that they will impart to them, to be responsible for their own actions, to be responsible, to make sure that they take care of their responsibilities. And that means when they are away in school, that they don't do stupid things, and that when they get married, that they're responsible for their job as a husband or as a wife. Each one needs to make sure that they're living up to their responsibilities. Right. Respect is a very big issue because people have no regard for anything. There's no regard for anything. Even for themselves. That's correct. That's the biggest problem, is because people have no self-dignity. There's no self-worth. They carry themselves like trash. They walk like trash. They talk like trash. And it's sad. It really is sad because, it used to be people would fly. They would get dressed up. They would be in a suit and tie. The women would be dressed. It would be because here people they're coming in their pajamas. They just got out of bed. They're like, they look like a mess. It's like, it's not that there's anything wrong with that per se, but you don't value yourself. Who walks around in pajamas in public? It's like, it's just not, it's undignified. It's undignified. A person needs to be responsible to carry themselves for what they feel they're worth, and for what other people hopefully think they're worth. And if a person doesn't respect themselves enough, it's a big problem. Great question, Marilyn. Thank you. Carlos, you always have something special. Let's go.
Kavod Rav, can the Yetzer Hara read my mind?
Oh, the Yetzer Hara is very, very smart. The Yetzer Hara can read your mind, and he knows what your likelihood is going to be, what your likely choice is going to be. But our sages tell us, always keep your Yetzer Hara on his feet. Trick him. Constantly play games on him. It's like, you ever try to do a diet? I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning about losing weight. He lost 60 pounds. I was like, wow, you look great. So he said, yeah, I've been doing intermittent fasting. I said, it's funny. I've been doing intermittent fasting as well, but now my body caught up with it. He's like, it's not a trick anymore. Like, I get it. Like, I know what you're doing. You're not going to lose any more weight, which is normal because he says, yeah, you have to trick your body. He says, you have to do things that the body's not expecting. Keep your metabolism on its feet, and then it'll let go of the weight again. It'll let go. The Yetzer Hara is the same thing. He's anticipating what we're going to react. We have to always, it says, Tachbolos taselacha. Trickery. With trickery, you'll overcome the Yetzer Hara. And that's what we need to do. We need to constantly use trickery to overcome the Yetzer Hara. Trickery. It's very important. Don't just let him have an easy ride. Yeah, this is what I do, and he beats me. And here's what I'm doing, he beats me. No. You come with the left jab, right? You give him something he's not ready for. And the Yetzer Hara is a real battle. It's an excellent question. So Yetzer Hara will anticipate what you're going to do, but you have to pull out a new trick. And you can win. Because God doesn't give us a challenge we can't overcome. Particularly the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara's job is to try to make us stumble. The Yetzer Hara's usual methodology is to push things off. Procrastination is a great tool of the Yetzer Hara. He says, why do it now? You'll do it in 10 minutes. You do it in a half hour. You do it tomorrow. Do it next week. It's not a big, you don't have to do it now. You do it next year. Right? That's the Yetzer Hara's ploy. He always tries to trick us with procrastination. You say, you know what? I'm going to do it now. Not waiting. Not letting that temptation of tomorrow. If you can do it tomorrow, do it today already. Why push off something to tomorrow that you can do today? Okay? Did I answer your question? Good. Baruch Hashem. Thank you. Mark, you got any question? All right, my dear friends. Thank you so much for joining us in the 16th episode of the question and answer series of the Everyday Judaism Podcast. We're going to blow the shofar. To our friends online, we're going to blow the shofar, but we have to stand when we blow the shofar. This is a special edition of the Everyday Judaism Podcast. We're also going to blow the shofar because we're in the special holy days of Elul, the days that precede Rosh Hashanah. We prepare ourselves by awakening our soul with the blowing of the shofar, and therefore we're going to do that right here, right now. Before we blow the shofar, just think of a prayer, think of a request, think of a connection that you would like to instill in your relationship with Hashem, and that's you're writing out your email. You're clicking send with the blowing of the shofar. So close your eyes, take a moment, contemplate what it is that you want to accomplish this coming year, what it is that you want to do, how you want to be prepared for Rosh Hashanah, and let that prayer ascend to the heavens with this blowing of the shofar. My dear friends, have a magnificent week. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to learning together throughout the rest of this week.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.